Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for our webinar today on how to network in a remote world. First, I want to take some time to point out that the author's affiliation is with the MITRE Corporation, and that is provided for identification purposes only. It is not intended to convey or imply MITRE's concurrence with or support of the positions, opinions, or viewpoints expressed by the author. And I also want to point out that this session is being recorded, so if you miss anything today, it will be available on YouTube a little bit later on. So now I'd like to really kick things off by introducing our speaker. Seth Wineland is an experienced business strategist for the MITRE Corporation based in the Washington, D.C. area. At MITRE, he serves as an advisor to federal government sponsors in the areas of strategic planning, performance management, foresight, and governance. Before joining MITRE, Mr. Wineland served as a strength conditioning coach and personal trainer where he worked with professional athletes and the public to improve athletic performance and general health outcomes. Outside of the office, Mr. Wineland is an avid weightlifter who enjoys strong coffee, medium rare steak, and spending time with friends and family. As a Pennsylvania native, he holds undergraduate and graduate degrees in exercise physiology from Penn State and James Madison University, as well as an MBA from George Mason University, where he was awarded the title Best Networker by his cohort. And yes, he is still paying off his student loans. So thank you, Seth, for taking the time to speak with us today about this topic that is just really so baffling and awkward for many of us. And I will go ahead now and pass the virtual mic off to you.
Thanks for the wonderful intro, Christine. I'm excited to speak to everyone today. And as Christine said, my name is Seth Wineland, and I'll be sharing with you today about my networking secrets to success. Now, first off, it's important that we level set and define what networking is. Networking is defined as the deliberate activity to build, reinforce, and maintain relationships of trust with other people to further one's professional development. But put more simply, it's just developing relationships that will help you in your professional life. During today's presentation, I'll focus on how to leverage LinkedIn specifically to help you build your professional network and get a job. Before we get started, let's go over a few ground rules and logistics. Please mute your mics for the entirety of the presentation. There will be time available at the end of the presentation for Q&A. If you have questions during the presentation, please submit it in the chat box. And today's presentation will be recorded and made available during the SC conference in November, as well as on YouTube. So, who am I? Well, before we dive into the content, I believe it's important to provide you with some greater background on who I am. So when I was 16 months old, I was in a really bad car accident, and it's had a large impact on my life. I suffered brain and spinal cord damage, and it caused paralysis on the entire right side of my body. Now, as you can imagine, school was pretty tough. I didn't even get into my first choice of college. Instead, I transferred to Penn State after my freshman year. After graduating with my master's in exercise physiology from JMU, I moved to the DC area and worked as a strength and conditioning coach for a few years. It was during this time, while waking up at 5 a.m. 5 days a week, I found a mentor who recommended I get my MBA. And for those wondering, that's 135 pounds in each hand. After getting my MBA in 2017, I used the same steps I'll show you today to connect with MITRE employees on LinkedIn. It was actually through a connections referral that I was able to interview for my current position. Now, what's MITRE, you ask? The MITRE Corporation is a not-for-profit organization with dual headquarters in Bedford, Massachusetts and McLean, Virginia. Through public-private partnerships and federally funded research and development centers, MITRE works across the government and in partnership with industry to tackle challenges to the safety, stability, and well-being of our nation. At MITRE, we are solving problems for a safer world. Since starting there, along with my direct project work, I've been fortunate enough to speak several times on the importance of networking, and I serve as an advisor for 2 funded corporate programs. I share this all because it's important to understand that despite the struggles and difficulties, I was able to overcome them. and the relationships I developed along the way by networking played a large part in that success. Now that you know a little bit more about me, I have a very important question to ask. Who cares? Now let's do a quick survey. If you or someone you know has benefited from networking, send me a thumbs up right now. Okay, well, today's your lucky day. By applying what you learn here, you will benefit. So this visual I'm a big fan of because it highlights something I think we all intuitively know. As you grow in your career, strategic and interpersonal skills become increasingly important. Think about it. When you graduate and start a job, you're likely doing the technical and tactical work your supervisor tells you to do. Fast forward a few years, and now you're the supervisor, which is a more strategic and interpersonal role. And you're telling new employees what to do. So what's this have to do with networking? Well, networking helps to develop the strong communication and interpersonal skills necessary for success in your career. Now, due to COVID, networking is largely occurring in a virtual environment right now. LinkedIn is the most well-known and respected professional networking site and the platform I'll be focusing on today. So if you have a LinkedIn profile, send me a thumbs up right now. I'm glad to see so many thumbs up, and if you happen to not have one, I highly recommend you create one. What follows in the following slides is an overview of some important areas to focus on. Each area in yellow is of particular importance. The first area of focus pertains to the imagery you use. It's important that your profile picture is appropriate and fits in the space provided. The same applies if you decide to post a background photo. Now, let's do a quick exercise. This is an example of a picture you probably shouldn't use. The fact I'm wearing a tracksuit and 1980s style sunglasses does not really communicate the term professional. This, on the other hand, is a good LinkedIn photo. I'm in a suit, actually the same suit I'm wearing right now. I'm smiling, and there's nothing in my teeth. The second area of focus is your signature line, which is comprised of your name and headline. After your last name, include any advanced degrees or professional certifications you have. Just below that, we have the headline area. I've used this space to highlight my current job title and a few professional characteristics that describe me. For students, you could use this area to write something along the lines of high-performance computing graduate student seeking employment opportunities in federal government contracting. The third and final area of focus is your About section. This is where you have the opportunity to promote yourself. As a student, you can use this space to expand upon your profile headline and talk about the value you bring to the table. When you put it all together, this is the end result. And now that we've made a profile, let's talk about how to connect virtually using a simple 3-step process. The first step is to identify. This step entails asking who and why. Who should you connect with? Well, I personally recommend recruiters, past and present coworkers, people with jobs you want to learn more about, grad students and programs you're interested in, and even the professors who teach the grad programs you're interested in. Also, why do you want to talk to them? Are you networking? Are you looking for an internship or a job? If it's the latter, you have to ask yourself, have you done the homework on the company the person works for? Are there available positions you're interested in? Once you've asked yourself these questions, it's time to contact. This step entails crafting and sending messages to the people you've identified and want to connect with. What follows are two templates I've created and shared that have been effective in establishing initial contact. This is a basic template I've recommended for students to use. Notice how in the second sentence, they clearly communicate how they know the person. Now, be aware that a unique aspect of LinkedIn is that it limits messages to 300 total characters initially when you're not connected to someone. For reference purposes, the message above is 286 characters. Here's another basic template I've had students use. This message is 279 characters. Now that you've seen a few templates, let's break down the message into its 5 component parts using pictures. You start with a salutation. Hi, Groot. Then move to your introduction, where you introduce yourself, your school, and what you're studying. Then you provide context. This is where you provide the reason for contacting them. This helps them to connect the dots. And you conclude with your call to action, where you ask them a question. And you close out the message by providing your name and personal email address. So we've just gone through the 5 parts of crafting a message for initial contact. Now, let's put some words to the pictures. You start with the salutation. You move to your introduction. Then you provide some context. And conclude with your call to action. And close out by providing your name and personal email address. So the message above came in at 293 characters. And now that you've reached out, it's time to maintain, which is the third and final step. It's not enough just to connect. You should strive to continuously communicate with your connections to foster the creation of lasting personal, professional relationships. What follows are 2 examples of follow-up messages. The first is to talk on the phone, and the second is for an in-person meeting. And what's nice is that after you connect with someone on LinkedIn, the 300 character limit to your messages goes away. Follow-up messages follow a similar format to introductory messages. You start with a salutation, then you provide context, and conclude with a call to action. And you close out by providing your name and personal email address. For the in-person, again, we start with a salutation, then jump straight to the call to action. Then we provide some context. And the area that is in italics and underlined is areas that for potential questions that you may ask, you can plug and play as you wish. And we close out by providing our name and personal email address. So in review, today we've covered some important areas of a LinkedIn profile, as well as how to effectively identify, contact, and maintain connections on LinkedIn. Now, armed with this knowledge, I'm confident you have everything you need to network effectively. And before we field any questions, please feel free to reach out and contact and connect with me on LinkedIn. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, awesome. So now we can open up for questions. If you want to submit them in the chat window, you can, or you can come off mute and ask them there as well. Okay, so I've got a couple to get us started while I wait for people to type in, if you all have any. So Seth, you said you found your current role through LinkedIn networking. So when you're going through that process and trying to, search for a job after getting your MBA, how did you pick out people at MITRE to reach out to?
So I will flash back to one slide in particular. where we talk about who should you connect with. And I was earning my MBA, so I aim towards people in strategic areas such as business, strategic planning, performance management, etc. And as well as recruiters. Recruiters are the people that are like the first line people that you want to reach out to. And from there, once you connect with them on LinkedIn, it happens to show people that they are connected with, and you can connect with those people.
Thank you. Okay. So I got a question from Manuel. So, how often should I reach out to maintain contact with professionals I've known in the past, specifically if I'm not yet ready to make a transition because I haven't graduated?
That's a good question. There is no tried and true rule. I find anytime I find something of interest that may be of interest to the person in question, it's perfectly fine to reach out to them, saying something along the lines of, "Hi, I'm a big fan of your work, or I'm interested in the company you work with. I saw that you're a technology evangelist, and I found this article particularly interesting considering the work that your company does with XYZ."
Mm.
And overall, but if you had to, once a month is that is neither that difficult, or it won't make you come across as overbearing in any way.
Um, okay, so Sharon asked a question. If a few folks you reach out to don't respond, how long should you persist, and is there a good alternative approach?
That has personally happened to me, and usually I wait approximately a week to 2 weeks. I like to think, okay, if they're on vacation, okay, maybe it's a 1 week vacation. So you go back and say something along the lines of, "Hi, I just wanted to reach out again. I'd really like to connect because I found the work that your company is doing, or your job title particularly interesting, and I'd like to learn more."
Nice. And so if they don't respond to that, would you just kind of suggest just letting it go after a second follow-up?
Unfortunately, yes. Give it some time, and then even a few months later, maybe you're in a different position where you're now looking for internships or jobs. It provides you you can tailor your ask differently, and that may result in a different outcome.
So that's a good answer, I think. Yeah, so kind of leave it unless you have something new to bring to the table because they don't seem to be interested or really have the time for your first question. So okay, that's cool. So I've got another one from Radita. So should we accept everyone who wants to connect with us or filter it? And then how would you filter the requests?
So I normally filter it if you are in specifically to government positions where there is some sensitivity to the work. You may get reached out to by people based in certain countries that are not well received in the national security sector, and that should you should hesitate accepting those people. Additionally, by and large, it's people who you should be able to look at their profiles and see, okay, if they just threw something together, well, it may not be legitimate, versus if they've gone to school for something particular that you have a background in, or they've worked at the same company, or they have the same connections that you do. And if they do have the same connections you do, reach out to one of those connections that you trust and say, how do you know this person? So you can verify.
That's good advice. And I know for me, I don't accept LinkedIn requests from anyone that doesn't include a message. So if there's no like personal connection in the request, I won't take it unless there's someone that like, I mean, if my mom sent me like a LinkedIn request and didn't have a message, like I'd probably accept her. But I really like for people to take the time to kind of say like why they want to reach out to me. Otherwise, if it's somebody at a company I've never heard of or they seem like a salesperson, I'm just going to ignore it.
So similar to this one,
Mm-hmm.
you explain the reason why you're reaching out. Same with this one. The word, why are you reaching out? You give that, you provide the reasoning and context right up front. If you can't remember the words, just remember this picture, and that's it may stick a little bit more.
Another thing is if you're interested in, or if you've met them before, it can be good to call out where you've met them. If you see them speak at a conference, that can be something really good to throw in there. Maybe if you, yeah, if these are, yeah, okay, perfect. I enjoyed hearing you speak. I wanted to reach out. So that kind of gives them the context, like, okay, I don't know this person, but they attended one of my talks, and that I think is a really good way to reach out to somebody and forge a connection.
Absolutely. You want to be able to provide as much information as possible in 300 characters. And that can be difficult. And that's why I'm a big fan of these templates.
Yes. Okay, so here's another one. So last year at SC, we had professional headshot opportunities for all the students. They were able to get a free headshot. And so I guess, Seth, what would be your recommendation for what to wear for a professional headshot?
At least a collared shirt, by and large, with some roles, particularly in the computer science space, they get away with T-shirts and stuff like that. But by and large, wearing a suit and tie is never out of style, or a pantsuit. I'm not as familiar with the female versions of fashion.
Okay, great. So I think those are a lot of the questions I have. Do I have any other questions from the audience on this topic? Okay, well then I think I will, I see, oh, I just got a thumbs up, okay. So thank you so much, Seth, for taking the time to share this with us. And as I said earlier, we will have this up on YouTube. So if you want to review and check out these templates again, I think these templates are really useful. I know that I hate writing anything from scratch. I have to have a template almost no matter what I'm doing. So I think these will be really useful for everyone to use when you're going through your LinkedIn networking and reaching out to speakers before and maybe even after SC was here. So thank you everyone for attending. Thank you so much, Seth, for taking time out of your day to do this and put together this presentation. It was really valuable. So thank you so
The
much.
pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.